You're in the middle of a conversation and something feels off. You said something simple, something clear, and somehow, a few sentences later, you're the one apologizing. You're not even sure how it happened. You walked in feeling certain, and now you're standing there replaying your own words, wondering if maybe you were the problem all along. Maybe it was a parent who sighed in that particular way, the sigh that said, "I'm disappointed," without a single word of accusation. Maybe it was a partner who went quiet, and suddenly, the silence in the room felt like it was your fault to fix. Maybe it was a coworker who smiled while rearranging the entire story so that they came out looking generous and you came out looking difficult. Maybe it was just a friend who had a talent for making you feel guilty for having needs of your own. Here's the strange part. In the moment, none of it looked like manipulation. It didn't feel like a battle. It felt like confusion, and that confusion is not an accident. It's the whole point. Because here is a truth that took me a long time to understand. The most manipulative people in your life almost never win because they are smarter than you. They win because most people don't recognize the game until they're already emotionally invested in it. By the time you feel the pressure, you're already inside it. You're already defending, explaining, apologizing, negotiating, playing a game you never agreed to play, by rules you never got to see. So let me make you a promise. By the end of this video, you're going to recognize these patterns earlier, often before the other person even finishes their sentence. You're going to respond with clarity instead of panic, and you're going to learn how to protect yourself completely without ever becoming the kind of person who does this to others. Because that's the part almost nobody talks about. The goal here is not to outmanipulate the manipulator. The goal is to become someone whose emotional buttons simply stop working when they're pushed. Let me show you how. Lesson 1: manipulation doesn't start with a lie. It starts with doubt. Picture a small moment. You're recounting something that happened, a conversation, a promise, an event, and the other person tilts their head slightly and says, "That's not really how it went though." Calm, certain, almost gentle. And just like that, a tiny crack opens in your memory. You didn't lose the argument. You lost something far more important. You lost trust in your own perception. And that's where nearly all manipulation begins, not with a bold lie, but with a quiet invitation to doubt yourself. Psychologists have a name for the extreme version of this, gaslighting, but most manipulation is that dramatic. Most of it is a slow erosion, a repeated suggestion that your feelings are an overreaction, that your memory is unreliable, that your instincts can't be trusted. And here's what makes it so effective: human beings are wired to reduce internal discomfort. When someone confidently contradicts us, we feel a tension psychologists call cognitive dissonance. And the fastest way to relieve that tension isn't always to check the facts. Sometimes it's just easier to assume the other, more confident person must be right. But here's what most people completely miss. Confidence is not the same as accuracy. A person can be absolutely certain and absolutely wrong. And someone who has learned to sound sure of themselves has learned that your self-doubt will do most of their work for them. Here's your first realization: manipulation needs your uncertainty as fuel. If you don't provide it, the whole machine slows down. So the practical takeaway is simple but powerful. When someone makes you doubt what you clearly experienced, don't argue with them and don't immediately fold. Just pause and say to yourself quietly, "I know what I saw, I know what I felt." You don't have to win the debate. You only have to refuse to hand over your own reality. Because once you stop doubting yourself so easily, the game changes. And the next thing you need to understand is how they're reading you in the first place. Lesson 2: they're not watching your words, they're watching your reactions. Think about someone in your life who always seems to know exactly which comment will get under your skin. The sibling who knows the one topic that makes you defensive. The manager who knows that a little praise followed by a little disappointment keeps you working twice as hard. That's not a coincidence, that's observation. Manipulative people are often extraordinarily attentive, not to who you are, but to how you respond. They're studying your reactions the way a chess player studies patterns. They notice what makes you flustered, what makes you rush to explain, what makes you cave. and every strong emotional reaction you give them is information. It tells them exactly which lever to pull next time. This is where emotional regulation becomes your quiet superpower. When you learn to stay calm, not fake calm, not suppressed calm, but genuinely steady, you stop broadcasting your weak points. There's a concept from psychology worth understanding here: the space between stimulus and response. Between what happens to you and how you react, there is a gap. In that gap lies your freedom. Manipulation lives in the moments when that gap collapses to zero, when you react instantly, emotionally, predictably. But here, what changes everything. Regulating your emotions is not the same as hiding them. This is where people go wrong. They think the answer is to become cold, to shut down, to feel nothing. That's not strength. That's just a different kind of prison. Emotional regulation means feeling the feeling fully and then choosing your response on purpose instead of on impulse. So here's your takeaway. The next time you feel that hot flash of reactivity rising, don't suppress it and don't unleash it. Just slow your breathing and buy yourself 3 seconds. 3 seconds is often the entire difference between a reaction they can use and a response you can be proud of. And once you stop reacting on command, they'll reach for the oldest tool in the book, the one that's been used on you your entire life. Lesson 3. Guilt is the oldest leash ever invented. Let me tell you about a feeling you already know intimately. You said no to something reasonable, a favor, a request, an invitation, and instead of accepting it, the other person went quiet, looked hurt, and murmured, "No, it's fine. I'll just figure it out myself." And suddenly you're not relieved that you set a limit. You're drowning in guilt. Here's the thing you need to understand. There are 2 completely different kinds of guilt, and learning to tell them apart will change your life. Healthy guilt is a signal. It shows up when you've actually done something that violates your own values, when you were unfair, unkind, dishonest. It's useful. It points you toward repair. Manufactured guilt is something else entirely. It's guilt installed in you by someone else, for their benefit, when you've done nothing wrong at all. It's the guilt of saying no, the guilt of having needs, the guilt of not being endlessly available. Manipulators are experts at manufacturing guilt because they've learned that most people can't tell the difference. If you grew up as a people pleaser, often because love once felt conditional on keeping others happy, you may have a guilt reflex so sensitive that other people can activate it almost at will. But here's the deeper realization. Guilt is supposed to be a response to your behavior, not a tool for managing your behavior. When you feel guilt, the first question is not, "How do I make this feeling stop?" The right question is, did I actually do something wrong, or did I just do something inconvenient for them? Your takeaway is this: when guilt rises, run it through one honest test. Did I violate my values, or did I simply disappoint someone's expectations? If you only disappointed an expectation, that guilt isn't yours to carry. Set it down. Now, the moment you start declining to carry guilt that was never yours, something interesting happens. You start setting boundaries, and boundaries, it turns out, are where manipulation finally shows its true face. Lesson 4. A boundary is a flashlight. Watch what it reveals. Here's an experiment that reveals a person's character faster than years of knowing them. Set a small, reasonable boundary and watch what they do next. Say you tell a friend kindly, "I can't talk right now, I'll call you tomorrow." A healthy person says, "Of course, talk then." But someone who is relying on your lack of boundaries will react very differently. Suddenly, the boundary itself becomes the crime. "Wow, I guess I know where I stand. After everything I've done for you, you've changed." Pay close attention to that reaction, because it's telling you something profound. A boundary is not an act of aggression. It's simply a statement of where you end and someone else begins. And to a person who respects you, a boundary is barely noticeable. It's just information. But to a person who is benefiting from you not having boundaries, that same boundary feels like a threat. Because it is. It threatens their access. It threatens the arrangement where your job was to accommodate and theirs was to receive. This is where manipulation becomes visible. The intensity of someone's reaction to your boundary is often directly proportional to how much they were relying on you not having one. And here's what most people miss. When someone reacts badly to a fair boundary, our instinct is to soften it, to over-explain, to apologize until they feel better. But every time you do that, you teach them that enough pressure will make your boundaries dissolve. You're not keeping the peace, you're training them. So your takeaway is this: state your boundary once, clearly, kindly, and then stop explaining. You do not owe a paragraph of justification for a reasonable limit. No is a complete sentence. That doesn't work for me needs no footnotes. The calmer and less defensive you are, the clearer it becomes that your boundary is not up for negotiation. But sometimes they won't attack the boundary directly. Sometimes they'll try to pull you into an argument instead. And here's the part that will genuinely set you free. Lesson 5. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. There's a certain kind of person who can turn any conversation into a courtroom. You mention that something bothered you, and within minutes you're cross-examined, your past is on trial, your character is the evidence, and somehow you're defending your entire personality over something small. I want you to sit with one idea, because it's one of the most liberating things you'll ever learn. Not every provocation deserves a response. You can be invited into an argument and simply decline to attend. Think of it this way: every time someone provokes you and you engage, you've agreed to play on their field by their rules at their tempo. But engagement is a choice, not an obligation. When someone is clearly trying to bait you into a spiral, moving the goalposts, twisting your words, dragging in old grievances, the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to grab the rope in a tug of war. You can't lose a tug of war you never join. Now this is important because there's a wrong way to do this. Strategic disengagement is not the silent treatment. It's not sulking, and it's not punishment. Those are just manipulation wearing a quieter mask. Real disengagement sounds like this: I don't think this conversation is going anywhere productive right now. Let's talk when we're both calmer. And then you actually step away, calm, non-punitive, final. Here's the deeper realization. Your attention and your emotional energy are not infinite public resources that anyone can withdraw from at will. They are yours to allocate, and choosing not to engage isn't weakness or avoidance. When it's done consciously, it's one of the highest expressions of self-control there is. Your takeaway: before you respond to a provocation, ask yourself one question: is this a real conversation or a trap dressed up as one? If it's a trap, you're allowed to walk away from it with your dignity fully intact. And notice what all of these tactics have in common: doubt, guilt, provocation. They all work best when you're moving fast, which brings us to something you need to understand before we go any further. Now, before we continue, I want to say something honestly. Everything we've talked about so far creates awareness, and awareness is where all change begins. You can't fix a pattern you can't see, but awareness alone is what transforms a life. Practice is. Recognizing manipulation is the first step. Rewiring your automatic responses so these tactics stop working on you is the real work, and that work happens through repetition and reflection over time. That's exactly why I wrote my book. It takes the ideas in this video much deeper, with practical exercises, guided self-reflection prompts, and mental models that help you strengthen your emotional intelligence and rebuild your boundaries from the inside out. It's designed to turn understanding into instinct. If you genuinely want lasting change, not just a moment of clarity, you'll find it as the first link in the description. And now let's keep going, because the next lesson is one of the most practical of all. Lesson 6: urgency is the enemy of clear thinking. Notice how often manipulation comes with a clock attached. I need an answer right now. This offer won't last. If you really cared, you wouldn't have to think about it. Everyone else has already agreed. There's a reason for that pressure, and once you understand it, you'll see it everywhere. When human beings feel rushed, we shift into a faster, more reactive mode of thinking. Under stress, your body floods with signals that prioritize speed over accuracy, great for escaping danger, terrible for making good decisions. Your capacity for careful reasoning quite literally narrows, and manipulators, whether they understand the neuroscience or not, have learned this through experience. A rushed person is an easily influenced person. urgency is not usually about the situation. It's about preventing you from thinking. Because here's what they're afraid of. If you slow down, you might notice the inconsistencies. You might ask a question they can't answer. You might realize the emergency isn't actually an emergency at all. Confusion and pressure are their allies. Clarity and time are yours. This is where you take back control with almost no effort. The single most powerful phrase against manufactured urgency is astonishingly simple. Let me think about it. That's it. You don't have to justify it. You don't have to promise when. You just introduce a pause, and in that pause, the pressure loses its grip, and your actual judgment comes back online. The deeper realization is this: almost no legitimate, good faith request is destroyed by giving you time to consider it. If a decision genuinely can't survive 24 hours of your reflection, that's not a sign you should hurry. That's a sign you should be careful. So your takeaway is to treat artificial urgency as a red flag rather than a reason to rush. The more someone pressures you to decide now, the more you should slow down. Speed serves them, patience serves you. And as you slow down and reclaim your own judgment, you'll start to notice something about why certain tactics ever worked on you in the first place. It has less to do with them than you'd think. Lesson 7: fewer buttons to push. Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed that the same insult can devastate one person and completely bounce off another? Tell someone secure in their intelligence that they're stupid, and they'll just raise an eyebrow. Say it to someone who secretly fears it, and you've handed them a wound. That difference is not about the words, it's about what's underneath them. Manipulation works by finding the places where you already doubt yourself and pressing there. The person who's terrified of being seen as selfish is easy to control through guilt. The person desperate for approval is easy to control through withdrawal of affection. The person who fears abandonment can be kept in line with the smallest hint of leaving. Manipulators don't create these fears. They find the ones already living inside you, and they use them as a control panel. Which leads to a realization that flips this entire dynamic around. The most effective long-term protection against manipulation isn't a clever comeback or a defensive strategy. It's building a sense of self-worth so grounded that there are simply fewer buttons left to push. When you genuinely accept yourself, flaws and all, the tactics that rely on your insecurity lose their fuel. You can't be controlled by the fear of being called selfish once you've made honest peace with the fact that having needs doesn't make you a bad person. Here's the part that connects everything. This is exactly why the earlier lessons matter so much. Every time you refuse to doubt yourself, every time you set a boundary and hold it, you're not just handling one situation, you're slowly proving to yourself that you can be trusted to protect you, and that accumulated self-trust is self-worth. Your takeaway, instead of only defending against attacks, quietly do the inner work of knowing your own worth. Notice which criticisms actually sting, because those sore spots are pointing directly at the beliefs about yourself that still need healing. Every button you disarm inside yourself is one less button anyone can ever press again. And this brings us to the final lesson, the one that ties everything together and turns all of this from a set of techniques into a way of being. Lesson 8: the real goal was never to win, it was to be free. Here, where I want to gently challenge something you may have been feeling this entire video. Somewhere in the back of your mind, there might be a quiet hope that once you learn all this, you'll finally beat them. You'll have the perfect response. You'll expose them. You'll come out on top. I understand that hope. When you've felt manipulated for years, the desire to win is deeply human. But I want to offer you something better than winning. The ultimate protection against manipulation is emotional independence. It's reaching a place where another person's approval, their moods, their disappointment, and their tactics simply don't have the power to run your inner life anymore. Not because you've become cold, but because your sense of peace no longer depends on managing how everyone else feels about you. Think about what manipulation actually requires to function. It requires that you need something from the other person, their approval, their calm, their reassurance, their staying. The moment your well-being stops being hostage to their reactions, the entire structure collapses. There's nothing left to hold on to. And here's the most beautiful part, the thing I most want you to hear. Emotional independence doesn't make you care less about people. It makes you able to care cleanly, to love without being controlled, to be generous without being drained, to stay close to people without losing yourself in them. You can finally give from a place of genuine choice instead of fear. This is the freedom the Stoics pointed toward 2,000 years ago. The calm understanding that you cannot control what others do, but you always retain control over how you respond. That single distinction between what's yours to govern and what isn't is the foundation of a mind that can't be manipulated. So your final takeaway is this. Stop measuring success by whether you won the argument or exposed the tactic. Start measuring it by one question: did I stay true to myself, and did I keep my peace? If the answer is yes, you've already won something they can never take from you. Let's bring all of this together, because something has quietly changed in you over the last few minutes. The manipulative people in your life probably aren't going to vanish. There will always be someone who tries to influence you through guilt, someone who manufactures urgency, someone who twists your words or goes cold to pull you back into line. That part of the world isn't going away. But you are different now. You recognize the patterns, you feel the tug of guilt, and you pause to ask whether it's actually yours to carry. You hear the ticking clock of urgency, and you slow down instead of speeding up. You notice when you're being invited into an argument, and you remember you don't have to attend. You set a boundary, and you don't dissolve it the moment someone pushes back. And most importantly, when someone reaches for one of your buttons, they're increasingly finding that the button isn't there anymore. You've stopped confusing kindness with weakness. You can be warm and still be firm. You can care about someone and still refuse to be controlled by them. And you no longer believe it's your job to manage every other person's emotions at the cost of your own. That is what real strength looks like. Not the loudest voice in the room, not the cleverest comeback, not beating them at a game you were too dignified to play in the first place. Real strength is staying calm when someone wants you rattled, holding your boundary when someone wants it gone, and walking away with your integrity completely intact. You were never meant to become like the people who hurt you. You were meant to become someone their tactics simply can't reach. If this video gave you a new way of seeing the patterns in your life, I want to offer you the next step, because seeing them is where it starts, but truly living free of them is the journey. That's what my book was written for. Everything we explored today, it takes further and deeper than any single video ever could. Inside, you'll find the practical exercises to rebuild your boundaries, the guided reflections to uncover which buttons still need disarming, and the mental frameworks that turn all of this from something you understand into something you simply are. It's designed to help you build these responses into lasting habits, so that calm, clarity, and self-respect stop being things you have to remember and become the way you naturally move through the world. If you're ready to go from awareness to genuine, lasting change, you'll find it as the first link in the description. Not as a quick fix, there aren't any, but as a companion for the real work of becoming someone who can't be manipulated and who never has to lower themselves to do it. Take care of your peace. It's the one thing no one can take from you unless you hand it over, and now you know better than to hand it over. I'll see you in the next one.